This is Supported Sexy, episode 196, with writer, producer, and director, Crystal McCrary. Welcome to Supported Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Supported Sexy. I'm excited to have you here. You know it just would not be the same without you. And today I am excited to bring you Crystal McCrary. Crystal is a woman after my own heart. She has always known that she wanted to be a writer, but did not know exactly how she would become a writer or exactly how one becomes a writer, because she talks about not having those examples in her life growing up of how someone made writing a profession. I totally get it. You know, I always talk about how much I love writing and being a writer, always writing as long as I can remember, but not knowing exactly how to transition into becoming a professional writer in those early days. So Crystal, who is now a writer, a novelist, a producer, and a director, and her most recent project was Little Ballers with WNBA star Skylar Diggins. Now she has done so many projects, written books, worked on so many things, and is here to share with us her journey and also information for you if you are an aspiring producer, an aspiring writer, an aspiring director. So, you know, I was all up in this episode. So what Crystal shares with us today is the importance of writers writing, the practice of morning pages. You'll find out more about that if you don't already know. What a chance meeting with bestselling author Terry McMillian taught Crystal about writing, why execution is everything, Crystal's advice for those who are aspiring producers or who want to create documentaries, why you have to invest in yourself, how to pitch your project and the importance of more show and less tell, the importance of telling the stories of women and girls, how to use your life and your experiences as your own textbook, and an important mantra that Crystal uses to remind herself to be gentle. You know, I'm all about it. We have to be gentle with ourselves, even when we're working hard to make so many things happen. All right, so I know you're going to enjoy this episode with Crystal, especially if you are an aspiring writer, producer, creator, director, just a storyteller. And we all have a story in us, right? We're all storytellers in some way. And in this episode, Crystal shares amazing resources. So make sure you go to supportissexypodcast.com, go to the search icon and search Crystal, Crystal, and her show notes page will pop up with all of the resources there. So without further ado, Crystal McCrary. So Crystal, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Supported Sexy. I'm excited to have you here.
Well, I'm excited to be here with you. Thank you for having me on.
Excellent. So first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Well, I would say the birth of my love for entrepreneurship was tied in with me wanting to leave my law firm where I was practicing entertainment law, which was never really my area of interest. I learned a lot there, but I knew that I always wanted to write. What I didn't understand was there's the creative aspect of writing, but then, of course, there's also you're an entrepreneur essentially when you're writing, because when you start out, you're really working for yourself. At least that was my path, because the first creative endeavor that I, actually made some money from was writing a novel. Mm-hmm. So that was my step one, leaving my law firm and deciding that I was going to pursue this book that I had been working on and try to get a publisher. And from writing the novel, the freedom that I had to actually do something that I was deeply passionate about on my own schedule, which interestingly enough, though, I worked harder writing a novel and worked longer hours writing than I actually did at my law firm. But it was still the sense of me being, the master of my own destiny insofar as what my work trajectory was going to be. It wasn't dictated by a partner at a law firm. It wasn't dictated by a client. It was really dictated by my commitment to getting these stories and characters out, which was my step one to having a career as a content creator.
And that first book was Homecourt Advantage, right?
That is correct.
Yes.
Yes.
I remember
Yes.
that. Great book. I'll have to have a link to that so people can check it out too.
Well, thank you. Yes, that was novel number one.
Right.
Yes. I was in my 20s. It's hard to believe. That's been a minute.
I know, right? So when you were writing the book, were you still at the law firm and doing it, after hours or when you could, or did you decide to leave altogether and focus on the book?
Well, phase one of writing the book, I didn't really realize it was going to become the book that it ultimately became. I was still at the law firm. But Homecourt Advantage really started as a writing exercise that I learned from this other book that I love, which is called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Right.
And she has this exercise called the morning pages, where every morning you get up and you write 3 pages of brain drain. And the 3 pages of brain drain that I worked on, religiously for, 6-7 months, evolved into the beginning workings of Homecourt Advantage. And I would say when I got, probably halfway through a real rough draft of Homecourt Advantage, I was ready to make the leap. And leave the law firm. I really felt like, hey, this is something that I can do. I've represented several authors. I kind of have a roadmap now of what it takes career path wise to become a writer, or at least to explore that seriously. And then I had been at my law firm. I was able to save up some money to kind of take that leap also.
Right. Now, did you have these characters sort of in your mind already, or was it through the daily practice of writing that they begin to develop? I don't know if you're like me as a writer. Most writers, we just have characters dancing around in our heads waiting to come out.
Yeah, I think that it's a combination. It started as experiences, emotions, characters that I've created can be composites of, 20 different experiences with a characteristic of, my grandmother, and a trait of my sister, with an episode that happened with another person. And then I just really build on that. Mm-hmm. There's so much, there's like my emotions and my memories and my sensibility and reaction to others' behavior all inform what I write and going into creating characters. It's a really multi-layered process.
So you mentioned that you always knew that, or did you always know that you wanted to be a writer, even though you went into practicing law? Was that part of you always there?
Oh, yeah. I've always been deeply passionate about writing. I was actually a late bloomer with reading as a child. I actually didn't learn to read until I was in 4th grade. All my classmates were reading, but I wasn't. And I wasn't quite sure why as a child. This was, before the era that we live in now, where there's so much information on, that the child blinks their eyes too many times. There's a name for it. Me not knowing how to read, I wasn't diagnosed with anything other than just, oh, she's slow at reading. We have to figure out how to get her to learn to read. But interestingly enough, what I did do, and I still can't really figure out this as an adult, how I was able to do it. I couldn't read, but I would write. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that everything I was writing, it was not spelled correctly, but I would put words and thoughts together in a way that I understood them, and then I'd illustrate them. So I'd create stories, like in 2nd and 3rd grade, that I would illustrate, family dramas. So it really started there, and then the various types of writing that I did, that wound up in my bedroom dresser drawers over the years while I was in high school, in undergrad, and in law school, and even practicing law, ranged from short stories to poems to essays. It was just something I was incredibly inspirational for me, and also it was just therapeutic as well. Which writing can be so many things. It offered me hope, so that was something that I always knew that I wanted to do, but I just didn't know how to have a career. I didn't know that because I didn't have anybody in my model. I didn't know that anyone in my family. I didn't know that one could actually have a career as a professional writer. At least I didn't know anyone personally until I got to my law firm, and that was another sort of light bulb that went off for me. That oh wow, people do really have careers, and I guess I knew that cerebrally. I knew that because I loved reading books as well as I got older. I loved reading lots of different types of novels and nonfiction books, but it wasn't until I was at the law firm that I said, hey, this is something that I might really have a shot at pursuing a career.
I think that's so important what you said, is because many of us end up doing things that may not necessarily be what we really want to do, but it's because we don't have those models of the possibilities. Like you said, you didn't have anyone at that time that you had seen be a successful writer until you got to the law firm. So it's an example of why telling stories, which is what you do in so many ways now, I think is so important.
Yeah, it is important, and it is important to have mentors and role models. And I think that serendipity plays a part as well in people whose paths we cross on our journeys, that help us to get closer to the goals that we're trying to reach, even if we don't realize it. One of those people for me that became a mentor, who I didn't even realize at the time was becoming a mentor, was Terry McMillian. When I was actually at my law firm, it was the first year I was there, it was 1995. And that was right on the heels of the tremendous success of Waiting to Exhale. And, every African-American woman, every woman in the country was reading Waiting to Exhale at that. And then it had just been made into a film. And I took a vacation to Jamaica and met Terry McMillian right after the film Waiting to Exhale had come out, and actually met her at the resort where she met her former husband, who she ended up writing How Stella Got Her Groove Back about. And we met, it was my girlfriend and I, we were, like the only three African-American women I can recall that were guests at the hotel. And we ended up eating together. We ended up dining together a few times. And, I was starstruck, just a fan of the book, but also in awe of, wow, you did this. You wrote this book, you got it published. And one of the things that Terry said to me in spending time with her back then was, I said to her, Terry, I was like, well, I want to write a book. And as I think about it now, I realize so many people said that to her, thousands and thousands. And years have gone by. I've had, hundreds of people to come to me. Oh, I want to write a book. But I remember Terry, in her very straightforward Terry McMillian way, she said, you want to write a book? Well, have you written?
Right. Because writers write.
Exactly right.
And what was your response?
And I said, well, I have things that I've written in that are in drawers, and
right.
And then she kind of gave me that look, a sideways glance, like, but what have you written towards a book? What have you done? What effort have you put towards that? What discipline have you shown to writing it, beginning, middle, and end, and then editing it? And she just, it was like a real reality check for me. That was I can't even say it was a reminder, because no one had ever spoken to me like that before, no one had spoken to me like that before. And here's somebody who, had actually, published a few books by that time. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was the convergence of creative desire and intent with work ethic and execution. And that's what I learned from that conversation with her.
When you went back home, is that when you started writing, or how did you come about the artist way and really begin dedicating yourself or being disciplined about writing?
So that was around the time that I first got the artist way, around the time that I met Terry. I want to say it was like July 1995. Mm-hmm. I graduated from law school in May of 1995, and I, went away. I was maybe like 4th of July weekend or something in 1995. Went down to Jamaica. But yeah, so it was shortly after that I got the book, The Artist's Way. And then I think I first started reading this portion in The Artist's Way prior to doing the morning pages in the brain drain. This part called The Shadow Artist, which is really deep, because it talks about how many people out in the world really want to have creative careers and are fearful of pursuing a creative profession. So instead, shadow people who are artists and have careers like, personal assistants to an actor, or become an agent, an entertainment agent, or in my case, I was an entertainment lawyer. I was representing artists, but I was somehow denying myself the opportunity to become one myself. So there were a lot of really amazing things that were happening that, in hindsight, I look at the signs we get from the universe.
That's right. It was all aligning for you, right?
That's exactly right.
But I think the thing, too, about your story, which is so important for people to get, is the fact that you still had to take action, and you still had to be the one to sit down and write and be disciplined and do it every day and decide that you were going to figure out how to make this happen or help this happen.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And one thing that I say to would-be writers that come to me for advice, and not dissimilar to me talking to Terry saying, I want to write a book. So many people, not all, because there are a lot of wonderful young writers that I mentored that ended up going on and publishing books. But there's a large percentage of people who come to me and ask my advice and say, well, hey, I want to write a book. I have a book idea. And not only have they not written, but they say, oh, well, I have a page, a treatment, or I'm doing an outline. Yeah, isn't that what you did? And what I had to explain to people is, no, I didn't sell Homecourt Advantage on an outline or, half the book, or I wrote the entire novel. It was probably, and my writing partner and I, Rita, we wrote the entire novel. It was like, 400 plus pages initially.
Wow.
Single spaced.
Right. Right. It wasn't a book proposal. This was the whole book.
And again, not that one can't do book proposals. Right. I mean, it's obviously more common with nonfiction books, and but for a novel, which is the art of it is the written word and the arcs of the characters and the story. You have to put the work in, and that has been a theme in my role as a mentor to many people, and also it has been a theme in work that I've done in the space of writing novels, in the space of producing films, directing and producing documentaries. I've so often initially worked outside of the studio system or the TV system and created my work, and then went and licensed it or sold it to a network or a cable outlet. I mean, that's not the path that everybody takes, but I speak from a place of when I've had a vision of wanting to create something, I work very hard to assemble a team to make that happen.
And you did that at a time when I don't know if you still do it as much today, but speaking about when you in the earlier days, you did that at a time when it wasn't as easy to do those things on your own as far as production goes, because now people shoot things on their phone or everybody has a camera and that kind of thing. So it's probably easier or more accessible for people now. Do you advise people go ahead and shoot the project or whatever they want to present to people?
Oh yeah, I always, when people come to me saying they want to do a film or what you get a lot of, I think what I get the most of now, people come to me, I have an idea for a TV show, for a series, and it's and they'll call me and they'll give me their pitch, and most of these are reality type series, and many of these people have never had anything on the air before, right? So they don't have a track record. They're like, I have this idea and I'm gonna take it to NBC.
Right, exactly, straight to the top.
Right. And by the way, many of these are fantastic ideas. But what I say to people is go and shoot it. To your point that you just made, Elayne, go and shoot it with your iPhone. Have a strategy. Be precise and be detail oriented in what the content is going to be, but you need to put it into some sort of visual format before you take it to, say, a production company that's still outside of the network system, like a production company, like an Endemol or Left Right Entertainment, or on a larger scale, there's so many large production companies out there now. But even if you want to take content to a large production company, unless you are a mega star going in with an idea, but if you're just someone who's new in the business, starting out, the more you can show a production company, or if you're trying to get talent attached, trying to get a star attached, the more you have done yourself to bring your vision to life, the better. The world is filled with great ideas, and that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. But it's the ones who execute upon those ideas that are, getting the deals.
Right. Excellent. So tell us about then your journey of creating Little Ballers Indiana, which I know just was the most recent project that you worked, or the most recent project that we've seen. You've probably done tons others since then. Have plenty in the works, right?
Well, I pace myself.
You pace yourself,
sort of, because I have a small production company, which by design, because I have 3 children and a husband, and so I was saying to a girlfriend yesterday who had recently left a big bank and has become an entrepreneur herself in the creative space. I was saying to her, I realized I was like, not only do I work full time, but I'm a full-time mom. Even though I do have help occasionally with my youngest. My youngest is 4. My eldest is 16. I'm there. I'm hands-on. I'm still in the mommy and me stage of classes.
Right.
Back to your question regarding my most recent project, Little Ballers Indiana, which was a docuseries that I created, produced, and directed for Nickelodeon Sports. It was actually the second of a franchise that I've created called Little Ballers. The first one I did, I did it outside of Nickelodeon. I did it independently. It went through a number of phases where I raised the money first I invested in myself, which entailed me getting a camera and following around basketball team of 11-year-old boys, including my son, as they tried to win a national championship. But it was really about how basketball has offered them hope and has given them a family. And that grew and grew. And I took it up, finally, finished it, took it on the film festival circuit, and ended up landing at Nickelodeon. So Little Ballers Indiana is the second installment of Little Ballers, which focuses on how sports offers hope to this group of 5 girls that play for the WNBA player Skylar Diggins for her AAU basketball team, which is out of South Bend, Indiana. And, it's really close to my heart, this one, because it touches upon, of course, the strength of young girls, and young girls understanding that ultimately their strength and their uniqueness is what makes them beautiful. And that's one of the recurring themes in the film, in the series.
One of the quotes that I saw that you said, one of my goals with Little Ballers Indiana was to show the strength and complexity of Black families and to celebrate our girls. So I wanted to ask you, how important is it for us to celebrate our girls, but to also remember to celebrate ourselves, which is something we sometimes forget?
Well, I think in celebrating these young girls, it's celebrating us as girls to women, celebrating the journey to womanhood, the journey to, as a young girl, understanding that what at 10 or 11 years old we may feel insecure about, or, like for instance, one of the girls in Little Ballers Indiana has vitiligo, which is the depigmentation of skin. And it, has been something that she has been very self-conscious about. Other kids have bullied her. And what basketball and the sisterhood of playing on a very supportive team has done for her is it's helped her realize that what makes her unique and strong doesn't have anything to do with how she looks, but it really has to do with how she feels, right? So what has made her feel good? It has made her feel good to be a survivor. It has made her feel good to understand that you can lose a tough game and go through adversity, but come through on the other side wiser and stronger. And also to understand that when she's out on the basketball court showing her special talent as a player, doing what she loves to do, it's not about what her skin looks like, but it's about her work ethic and the skills that she has because of the dedication and commitment that she has put into something that is deeply meaningful for her.
And I think sports, I played basketball when I was younger, ran track and all of that. And not that everyone has to play sports, but just the team idea and the idea of working together to achieve something, whether you win championships or not, I think is so great for all kids to have in some shape or another.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's tremendously important for our girls. And especially in an environment where we, have seen the whole mean girl phenomenon. Fortunately, there's more public awareness about it. But, what I love about team sports, particularly for girls, and I've seen it with my daughter who's 14 and she plays basketball as well, is when you come together as a team, or whether you're teammates and playing against another team of girls that are great players as well, there's a competitiveness between the two teams, the two girl teams. But I love seeing them go at it against each other while they're playing, and maybe they talk a little stuff on the court. I scored on you, or I broke your ankle.
Right.
But after the game, I love what it does for girls having to be good sports. You still got to go and slap hands, congratulating your teammate, your opponents who either you've beaten in a game or lost to in a game. And I love seeing that they can have this competition, but understand that they can still be friends too.
Right.
You can still respect your competition.
Right.
respect your competitor. And so that's something that it kind of undercuts this whole culture of mean girl stuff and I'm in competition with her over a guy, or I'm in competition with her over, because she's cuter than me, or she's this or that, you know what I mean, or she's smarter than me. But it's really sports is, to borrow from the late, great Nelson Mandela, when he accepted the Laureate Sports Award, about 15 years ago, he said, sports is the great unifier for us all. And I've seen that particularly with girls when they play against each other. And to your point quickly, though, about also with sports, it's not only about the lessons, it's not only about winning.
Right.
The coach of this team, Mo Scott, who was also his daughter's coach, Skylar Diggins, who now plays for the Dallas Wings, his thing is, I don't care if we win or if we lose. I just want you to get better. And his quote, he always says to girls, and we have a scene in the film where he's like, don't get mad, get better.
Right. Ooh, that's a good one in life.
Yes. Don't get mad, get better.
That's right. Keep practicing, keep writing those pages, keep whatever you have to do.
Exactly.
Now, as a producer, how do you decide what stories you want to tell?
So I'm at a place in my life now where the types of projects that I'm involved in are projects that have integrity, that are about uplifting us, that are inspirational and entertaining, but never appealing to the lowest common denominator. And now, with what's up next for me, I'm also very interested in working on projects that deal with social and political change as well. So I'm doing my second short documentary on the Legal Defense Fund,
great.
which was founded by Thurgood Marshall, and they really are the civil rights legal architects for this nation. They were the lawyers for the Selma protesters. They were the lawyers for Brown v. Board of Education, the landmark desegregation case. And they are now on the front lines of criminal justice reform and the voter suppression cases, and remarkably, the desegregation cases that we still have in this country. That's actually still their largest docket of cases. Desegregation. So I recently received a Ford Foundation grant to expand the short doc that I had done on the Legal Defense Fund into a longer form documentary. So I'm working on that with LDF and their extraordinarily dynamic, brilliant executive director, a woman by the name of Sherilyn Ifill, who is one of my heroes.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. I can't wait to see that.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that you had a short. Was that, again, something that you went ahead and filmed and then presented it, and it was supported by these other organizations?
So in the case of the first LDF short that I did, that was actually something that they reached out, the board of the members of the board of LDF reached out to me. They had seen some of my work over the years. I mean, they'd seen Little Ballers, but they'd also seen the docuseries that I had done. I did a docuseries called Inside Black Culture for BET, where I profiled the Studio Museum in Harlem and Abyssinian Baptist Church and Evidence Dance Company, but where I profiled African American cultural institutions and churches. But they reached out to me. But I did the short. They funded it. And then based on that short doc, the Ford Foundation, I applied for a grant and received a grant to expand it out of the short film. So again, in order to get that grant, I had something to show them.
Exactly. Not an idea. That's right. Exactly. So when do you have a sense yet of when you're completing that, or is that what you're working on right now?
That is what I'm working on right now. So I'm doing another short for them that they want me to do, that they use for their purposes, to fundraise, that I'm doing for the end of this year. But I'm also working on the longer form that we'll see what happens. A lot of that depends on what's going on with, I think, the 2018 midterm elections, because much of their work has to do with voter suppression and the redistricting of voting lines, and them on the ground really representing clients who have been adversely affected by voter suppression efforts, like, the restrictive voter ID laws, like in Texas, right? The place where you can use a gun permit to vote, but you can't use a student ID to vote.
Right.
The restrictive voter ID laws that are adversely affecting Black, brown, elderly people, that also played a part in the most recent election that resulted in our current president.
That's what I say. Focus on 2018 for everybody.
That's right.
Got to change things in 2018. We have the opportunity to change things.
That's right.
Absolutely. Now, what would you say, do you have any suggestions, I should say, for anyone who's interested, especially in creating documentaries? I know that's a very specific type of storytelling. Were there any books or films, or was it all just from doing it and experimenting that you would say you learned from, for anyone listening who might be an aspiring documentary filmmaker?
So, first of all, my world is my textbook. Life is my textbook. Mm-hmm. And I am one of those people that I'm probably, to a fault, the furthest away from being a know-it-all. One of my credos is, I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
And I want to learn. And I want to be an eternal student. So in saying that, I approach every project that I work on, particularly documentary films, I approach it like a 3-year-old child, I suppose, would approach it. And I try to learn from just gobbling up being a student of documentary films. Whether it's PBS, whether it's the Classic Movie Channel, however you can gobble up and absorb documentary films and figure out what it is that you like about them, what's powerful there. What type of lighting did they use? Did they have a uniform look? What kind of archival footage did they use? Did they use a voiceover? What's their graphics? What was their editing choice here? Why, really become a student of it. Mm-hmm. And then, whatever it is that you're passionate about, the people I find that end up making documentary films usually come to the decision to make one because there's something that they're already interested in or passionate about. And so that's half the battle. If you're passionate and inquisitive about something, and you get a camera and in your mind have an idea of what sort of story you want to tell, what sort of narrative you want to have, you're not halfway there, but you're maybe a quarter way there in your process. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of I have, interestingly enough, and maybe I should, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I have actually not read any books on documentary filmmaking. I've read plenty of books on writing fiction, on writing screenplays, but I have not actually read a book on making documentary films. I've learned from every editor, every director of photography, cinematographer, production assistant that I've worked with over the years. They have been teachers to me as well.
As you said, your life is your textbook.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yes.
What would you say entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
What has entrepreneurship taught me about myself as a woman? Well, I would say that it has reaffirmed for me what badasses women are, because we do have to wear so many hats. As whether you're a mother, an auntie, a grandmother, whether you're, a wife, a partner, a spouse, and you're trying to do your work, and you're trying to hold everybody else down. Mm-hmm. I just find that the strong women that I know who are entrepreneurs tend to be women who are juggling so much. And I'm not going to say, like you hear this often, and they always seem to make it look so easy. I wouldn't say that they make it look easy, but what I would say is that, and what I think I've learned about myself, is we have a perseverance to us. I think going out on the limb of choosing to become a creative entrepreneur has helped me to recognize the strength, the inner strength that I actually do have, even though I may frequently feel like it's all falling apart. Mm-hmm. But being sort of the master of my own destiny in terms of me setting the deadlines for myself, me setting the goals for myself, and a project, what I've recognized is no one's going to push me harder than I'm going to push myself. And I appreciate that about myself. And I've had years and years, and still to this day, times where I can be very hard on myself. I've gotten better with it over the past couple of years, and I have not quite a mantra, but something I have a conversation with myself about is, don't be so hard on yourself. You really are doing the best you can. And if you're not doing the best you can, there's always an opportunity to get better in the next moment, in the next hour, in the next day.
That's good. That's something that you repeat to yourself to remind yourself. I always say remind yourself to be gentle with yourself. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's right. That's incredibly important, because we can be so hard on ourselves as women. And I think that, everybody, humans can be hard on themselves, particularly, driven, ambitious people can be hard on themselves. But, if in my particular situation as, the mom, the wife, the businesswoman, the woman, kind of holding the house together, so much falls on me to be the backbone for everybody. And for all the kids, and they can have meltdowns, but so often, not so often, they're never expecting me to have a meltdown, right. and I don't, but I'm feeling like I want to have a meltdown.
So what does your support network look like for those moments when you do need to melt down or just vent or let go? I'm very close with my mom. I was raised by my grandmother, who I call my mom. She's 91 years old, an extraordinary woman. She's an amazing support for me. My mother-in-law, who's also 91, isn't that something? Mm. Because one thing I have learned, my family business is my family business, and when you have family issues, you keep it in the family. Mm-hmm. I do, at least. And I'm close with my sister as well. And then I'm not one of those active meditators, which I really admire the people who like sit down and have a space and can have the candles going and the beads or whatever it is that, the quiet room with the cushions. Right. They can get some meditating going on. That's beautiful. I engage in another type of meditation that
may benefit from having, a more peaceful environment like that. But I really am in accordance with myself. I have dialogue about, am I being authentic to myself? Am I being in integrity with myself? Am I making sure that I put the mirror up to myself to be the best person that I can be, to be accountable, to be responsible, and to be empathetic.
Right.
So that's a part of my daily. Sometimes I have that conversation more than others, and it helps me.
Yeah, and meditation, as they say, can look a lot of different ways. For me, running is a meditation. Once I finally accepted that.
Yes, I love running too.
I do too.
I love it. I need to do it more.
I love it. So in closing, Crystal, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would it be and what would you say?
The most? Just one person?
One person. I know that's tough.
That was most critical to me, both personally and professionally?
Personally or professionally.
Personally or professionally. Huh. Wow. That's a good one. That's a tough one. But it would probably be a three-way tie.
Okay, fair enough.
Between my mom, my dad, and my husband, because each of them has contributed something vital to my journey as a woman. From my father, kindness. He was the kindest person I've ever known, and still known, the most honest person. And we don't have enough of that now. It offended him, the thought of somebody not being a kind, gentle soul. My mom, loyalty, loyalty to family. My husband, loyalty to family as well, but also he is my biggest supporter, but also he's about the quest for excellence. And everything that he does, and for himself career-wise, for us as a family, and what he instills in me as, my partner and my mentor, my husband, is we should always be thriving for excellence. Mediocrity is not acceptable.
Excellent. I love it. That was good. A three-way tie is good. So tell us now, how can we support you? Give everyone, if there's a website you want us to go to, social media, of course, I'll have links to everything, but just so everyone can hear it and knows how to get in touch with you.
Oh, absolutely. So yes, I'm Crystal McCrary, at Crystal McCrary on Instagram, also at Crystal McCrary Productions on Instagram. I have a couple different accounts, and on Twitter, at Crystal McCrary. Very easy.
Excellent. I love it. Thank you so much, Crystal. This has been fun. I'm glad we got it going. We persisted.
Me too. Absolutely. and we will continue to persist.
That's right. Absolutely. So, now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
A parting piece of advice. Learn to listen more. Learn to be present more. And always allow a person their dignity.
Excellent. Crystal McCrary, thank you so much. Hold on just a second. All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Crystal McCrary. For more information and the resources that she mentioned, go to supportissexypodcast.com. Go to the search icon at the top and just type in Crystal, Crystal, and her show notes page will pop up with all of the resources there and all of the links. Also, if you are someone who is interested in launching your own podcast, or you're curious about it, you're thinking about it, you want some ideas, you want some feedback, you can go to girlonpodcast.com. It's a new Facebook group. I just set it up. It's free, completely open. I wanted to create a space for us women-led, women-hosted podcasts to come together to support each other because you know I'm all about it, but also to share ideas and insight and advice and resources. I have some experts that I'm inviting into the group to answer some questions when they can. Of course, I will answer questions based on my own experience. I'm all about, as I said, storytelling, not just my own story, of course, other people, you as listeners, as women who are creating something sexy, being able to get your voice out there. So if you think podcasting might be something that's of interest to you, go to girlonpodcast.com, request to be a part of the group, get on in there, ask your questions, and I will see you there. All right, so thank you as always for listening. I truly, sincerely appreciate you. And now you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.